Chapman of the International Forecaster. How are you today, Bob?
I am terrific.
Well, of course, you're always terrific, but what do you think about this great stimulus bill? Now, Barack Obama says that this is really what we needed. Boy, the stimulus bill is going to solve all of our problems. Pretty soon, the flowers are going to begin blooming again, and the factories are going to open up, but is that really going to happen?
Well, about September, October, people are going to realize that it hasn't worked, and it isn't working, and Congress is going to... Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're doing fine. You sound great.
Okay. I get a little gobbling on this end. And Congress is going to decide that they need another package. And we'll get that right after the first of the year, and that will be probably a $2 trillion deal. And I think that the part of the money that is going to be expended out of the $350 billion TARP funds will probably be used for things that Wall Street didn't intend. And I think they're going to need 4 or 5 more TARPs of 700 billion. They'll probably need at least 4. And so these will come over the next 2 to 3 years. And they're still not going to solve the problem. And one of the problems with the stimulus bill is it's just so loaded with pork. And they've tried to make everybody happy, and in the process dispersed the money too widely. I think it should have been concentrated in consumption. I mean, that's what we need, consumption to manufacture, to rebuild the inventory, and so on. So instead of giving a couple $800 credit on their taxes, which won't come into gear until next April or May, that what they should have done is given them a credit of perhaps $1,500 or $2,000 now in the form of a check, and allowed them to jack up the economy. But even that I don't think would have worked either, because you're still looking, even though we think $800 billion is a lot of money in the scheme of things, in an economy that's $16 trillion economy, that's not a lot of money. And it is money, but it's not what's needed.
Well, I certainly agree with you. Did you say we have a $16 trillion? Is the GDP up to 16, or what is the GDP now?
Well, it's probably backed off from there. It's probably around 15.
All right, fine. Well, anyway, our guest today is Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster. And, of course, they're talking about, well, there's only $786 billion, but it's going to take trillions more. And nobody ever asked, where's the trillions of dollars coming from? We don't have it. Are we going to borrow it? Are we going to manufacture it? Are they going to create it out of thin air? Are they going to destroy the value of our currency? And I think they are. Well, this is Dr. Stan here at Radio Liberty. Our guest today is Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster. We're talking about the stimulus bill, and Bob has said that he doesn't think the stimulus bill is going to do that much, that it's going to be the first in a series of massive outputs of money that's going to be demanded by the government. Each time we're going to be told, if you don't pass this bill, things are just going to get worse. Remember what they told us last October? If you don't pass this bill, there are going to be troops on the street. The whole country is going to go into chaos by next Monday. You've got to pass this bill. That was October 3rd. And they said, if you vote against this bill, why, there's going to be a chaotic situation and more people are going to lose their jobs. And a lot of the Republicans voted against it. And sure enough, just like Mr. Paulson said, when things got chaotic and more people lost their jobs, But it wasn't because they voted against it. It was because it wasn't going to do any good. It wasn't designed to do any good. It wasn't designed to try to stop the cascading loss of home loans. That was almost 5 months ago, 4.5 months ago, and they still haven't done anything about the housing mess. And yet they know that's the cause. Now, why would they have gone 4.5 months when they had the money? Congress gave them the money. They couldn't even give away $350 billion of it. They tell us, oh my goodness, the financial system's shut down. There's no money there. There's no money to loan. Yet the banks wouldn't take their money when they would offer it to them. What's wrong with this scenario? And I would ask you that, Bob. If the banks don't have any money to loan, why wouldn't they take the money that the government was offering them at a minimal interest cost?
Because there's not an ongoing problem with the banking community at the moment. But the problems are there. We're still talking $3.5 trillion. The banks are offside. They just haven't owned up to it yet, but evidently it's not as pressing as the other matters of getting the economy jacked up. But it's more about politics in here than anything else. It's about vote buying from the public. And that's the nub of the thing. And they're going to keep on doing that. This public making the public happy, or their financiers happy, the politicians, and that's going to continue, and that's part of all this largesse that's going to be spilled out over the next 2 or 3 years. But once they've done it 2 or 3 times, the public's going to say, forget it, and at that time there'll be terrible hyperinflation. We'll still be in depression.
Hold that thought, Bob.
Finally,
hold that thought. We'll be back in just a moment here.
Okay.
Well, this is Dr. Stan. I guess there's Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster, and Bob simply pointing out that after we've given them not only the $86 billion, but then the next trillion, and then the next trillion after that, and maybe another trillion after that, and of course by then they will have totally destroyed the value of our currency and got us into hyperinflation. And then they're going to say, oh, shucks, well, we didn't know it was going to work or not. We had to try. And ladies and gentlemen, they knew it wasn't going to work. This is not going to solve the problem. What we need to do is get back to a sound currency. What we need to do is do away with the Federal Reserve System. What we need to do is hold the banks who created this problem, who sold, frankly, fraudulent bonds. If you and I were to sell a fraudulent bond, we would be, forced to take it back and put in prison. But the bankers, of course, who actually were selling the fraudulent bonds, nothing's being done. In fact, we're rewarding them by giving them massive amounts of money and being allowed to, of course, retire with golden parachutes. And go right ahead, Bob.
Well, there's very few people who are running these financial firms who are not going to find a way to get paid off. And, if they can't get their parachutes and other things, then the Illuminists will find a way to pay them.
Yeah, I was reading, I think it was 700 people who work for Merrill Lynch. Got each one at least over $1 million, while the firm was losing $26 billion. If we're going to reward them for doing such a poor job and losing $26 billion, why should they be getting massive bonuses? Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, you and I are going to pay them. I mean, after all, Merrill then was turned over to Bank of America, and we're going to have to give Bank of America the money to make up for it. And this is the way the system works. And what they're doing is transferring money from the common people, from the poor people in a wealthy country to the super rich in a wealth country. I've got nothing against a free enterprise system, but we don't have a free enterprise system. We have a system where we have favoritism for certain groups who are associated with the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. And when you get a bonus of $1 million after losing for the stockholders $26 billion and destroying the company, why is there something wrong with the picture?